Hello and welcome to the webinar Estimating the Real Population of Dalits in Southern Asia. I am Iqra, the webinar's co-host and research associate at the South Asia Research Institute for Minorities. Before we begin the webinar, I would like to share the SARIM's vision and mission. In this age of increasing hate and intolerance, the South Asia Research Institute for Minorities was established the aim of protecting the rights of South Asian minorities. We at the South Asia Research Institute for Minorities believe that walls are not the remedy and the mutual respect between the religions is the best solution. Our purpose is to present unbiased, well informed, yet impartial and independent perspectives, voices, and visions. Our organization supports and raises awareness about the challenges that minorities face across the South Asian region as they struggle for their rights. They have a right to the land they live on, to the languages they speak, and to equal opportunities in all aspects of life. South Asia Research Institute for Minorities promotes secure rights for ethnic, national, religious, and linguistic minorities in the 8 countries of Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Maldives, Nepal, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka, which make up the South Asia region. We collaborate for South Asian minorities on issue of equity, inclusion, and social justice. Our organization acts as a forum of social movements and individuals from minority to activate their creative spirit and derive innovative solutions to the problems that minorities face. Such attitudes that demonize minorities and promote discord should be taken into account to eliminate such attitudes. Thank you for your patience. I would like to invite Kissa to start the webinar.
A warm welcome to everyone. Thank you for participating in today's webinar. My name is Kissa Zehra and I work at South Asia Research Institute for Minorities as a research associate. I am pleased to greet you all. Before we get started, let's do some housekeeping. Please type any question you have into the question box during the webinar. I will bring them up during the question answer session at the end. Thank you for your cooperation. Moving to the webinar, the topic of the webinar is estimating the actual population of Dalit in Southern Asia. I would like to invite Dr. Goldy M George, who holds a PhD in social sciences from Tata Institute of Social Sciences, will be our first speaker to address this session. He has been an activist for past 30 years working on Dalit and Adivasis' rights. His work experience ranges on various dimensions of anti-caste politics and resource politics. These could be understood as Dalit human rights, land rights, case of atrocity, development, politics, and related issues. He has published 3 books and 30 research papers, books, and nearby 500 articles in the mainstream national, religion, and popular media. He has taken research studies in different states. He has delivered lectures in many universities and public space in over 500 international, national, and state programs, and currently working as editor of Forward Press, New Delhi. We are delighted to have you here. May you proceed now.
Thank you very much, the South Asia Research Institute for Minorities, to invite me for this session. It's a real delight and it's a pleasure for me to be here and speak on precisely on estimating the population of Dalits in South Asia. Um, uh, the there are a few ways I would like to play for the team, the people over here today, to look at the question of Dalits in South Asia. But before that, I would like to bring into the limelight a few statistics that would be helpful for us to basically understand this in the overall picture. A few things which I would like to mention is like let's see the few nations that we are representing. We're talking about. It's definitely India, Second, we're talking about Pakistan. We're talking about Nepal. We're talking about Bangladesh. We're talking about Sri Lanka, and there are a few statistics that could be we could of understanding how should we estimate the population. I'm sure most of us would be aware of the broader population data that's referring to different countries. Um, like India has got around about see the estimates are quite different. India has got something around 250 million people from Dalit communities. But before that, I would also like to make a point here. See, there is a lot of confusion around the application of the term Dalit because even in India, there was a point of time when the term was understood as all oppressed, marginalized, and suppressed groups, the exploited class, coming together. But over the period of time, that whole understanding has completely changed, or it has come to a different way to look at it at present. So the first thing is that while we talk about Dalits in India, we talk about the statistics of Dalits in India. We also need to understand that the idea of if we look at the idea of untouchability practices and discrimination, if we put these as the benchmarks for identifying Dalits, there are more than the statistics, the what the statistics speak. For instance, there is a sizable number of population which do not come under the scheduled caste category in India. However, they face a lot of discrimination, like the Christians, for instance. Similarly, the statistics is not really correct in terms of basically identifying the larger population which has been faced with similar behavioral patterns and practices of discrimination, of caste based attacks, atrocities, and all. So if we put that together, then that will be a larger number of people. So let me start from here. The percentage as per the census record is 17.7, but I would say this would be something around 22%. But now when we look at the larger discourse of this, certain backward classes, they are commonly known as OBCs in India. Certain OBC groups in India are also having similar kind of a problem. They are also discriminated. There is untouchability practices against them. Some of them has also got similar occupation. Traditionally what they have been doing is at par, or so they are like the service providing groups. So that OBC population, and if you bring that OBC population into this whole notion, then that would be again another 45 to 50%. There is no clear statistics about India's OBC population as of now. Now, out and even if you remove the what I call it as, what I have termed it as the upper OBCs. The upper OBCs are basically that group which are relatively more privileged, and there is a lower OBC which is a much larger group. Number of groups are much larger. So if you look at this, for example, in Bihar, like the Yadavs, the Kurmis, the Koitis, the Banyas, they are the upper OBCs, whereas in the same state there are 257 plus social groups who fall in the same OBC category practices against this population, then that's it keeps on expanding. I'm not sure if the organizers are of this opinion where I'm looking at it from the perspective of untouchability practices. But I am trying to put a point before you. While we estimate the population of Dalits in South Asia, what is very essential and mandatory rather is to look at the whole notion of untouchability practices, discrimination, and caste-based atrocities. Now, I'm adding on to that in India. There is a 8% as officially, but unofficial sources tells us that 10% of scheduled tribes in India who are also subjects to caste-based atrocities and discrimination. So I'm just bringing the case of India, which I would say put together would be approximately around 60% of the total population of this country. Now, this is the case of India, which I'm bringing in. Now, if we look at the case of Sri Lanka, 83 percentage of the Tamil population in Sri Lanka are from lower caste background. They don't categorically use the term Dalits as such, or maybe also use, because the term lower caste in Sri Lankan context is interchangeable with the term Dalit in Sri Lanka. So 83% of the total population, and they make something around 5 to 6 million population. Um, so 83% of the Tamil population, let me make it very sure. So they make up to 5.5 to 6 million of the total population, and which comes to around 25 to 30% of the total population. So this means that in Sri Lanka, you could see that at least 25, if it is 25% of the total population, if the Tamils constitute 25% of the total population, then 22% are Dalits of the total population. And if the Tamils constitute 30% of the total population, then 25% of the total population are Dalits. And similarly, if we look at the case of Nepal, they have got two categories. There is only 3% of Dalits as such, lower caste, but there is a 22% of tribes, the Janjatis in Nepal, which put together would be around 25%, one fourth of the total population in the context of Nepal. And similarly, around in Bangladesh, they would constitute something around 3.5 percentage of the total population approximately. And whereas in Pakistan, this is again another tricky state where the official statistics vis-a-vis the unofficial statistics are way different. I was looking at a report by this International Dalit Solidarity Network, which speaks that um, uh, uh, I mean the official records are like very low, whereas the real records are really something way different. Official records would speak something around 300,000 population as of 1998, whereas at the same time the unofficial population was something around 2 million. So that's the huge difference. Now, how do we look at, what are the benchmarks? What are the benchmarks that we look at, these populations and to understand and to estimate this population? One is has been what has been their socio-economic and cultural history. This is one of the key aspects that we should be very careful about when we talk about estimating the Dalit population in this country. So this is one of the key things. Many of them like in Sri Lanka, like Nepal and all, or even for that reason in Pakistan, and of course in a different way in India. Many of them are working as bonded laborers. You know, this is a very big thing that we need to understand. So there is also a very thin line of differentiation at times between the idea of caste and the idea of class. So one is what they're doing right now, and what has been their history for at least the last few generations, is that many of them are bonded laborers. And the second thing which I already spoke is the practice of untouchability. Like, of course, you must be hearing a lot of stories from India, the way in India how things happens, and how much kind of attacks and how Dalits have been treated day in and day out. In a similar fashion, there are similar stories that we could see coming out from each of these countries. Whether it's the case of Sri Lanka, so there is discrimination. There is restriction to public spaces. There is restriction to educational institutions. There is restrictions to religious spaces. So all these are the common yardsticks by which we could broaden the spectra. We could broaden the idea of understanding and estimating the Dalits in this country and in the entire of South Asia.
Thank you, Dr. Goldy. We appreciate your sharing your point of view with us. Moving to the next speaker, I would welcome Ms. Cynthia Stephen. She is an independent media professional and gender and development policy researcher and analyst from India. Thank you for joining us and giving us your valuable time. Now it's your turn, ma'am.
Thank you. And I know the topic is about estimating the real numbers of Dalits in the in South Asia. I'd like to look at this question from a slightly different angle. Why did this question itself come up? Why do we want to know the numbers of Dalits in South Asia? What is the issue? So, in fact, this issue has been on my mind for many years. And as far back as 2012, I wrote an article called "The Issues in the Caste Census Debate." So I want to, it says, or it's called the riddle of representation. And this is a core issue that in our South Asian context, caste is not just a social category. It has so many implications for every part of people's lives, and not only as individuals but also in the society and in the society's institutions. And therefore, if once we come into democracy in a democratic context, then the numbers become important, and thereby the representation of these categories becomes a feature or a factor. And I would say that people know in India that there is reservation for SC/ST, that Dalits form about 14 to 15%, and the rest are, there are roughly 8% of tribal population. So the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes together constitute almost 25% of India's population. These are all well-known figures. And interestingly, they don't change. As the census happens every year, this ratio or proportion of Dalits and tribals doesn't seem to change. They seem to remain static, which is an interesting feature of the census that takes place. As you know, we have a decadal census in India, and it was the first exercises were started in the year 2000, in the year 1900s itself, the first decade of the 20th century itself by the British. So we've had over 100 years of tradition of counting the population. But I would like to point out that even till today, this counting of castes is a hot potato. Even now in Karnataka, the state of Karnataka, which is a highly diverse state, a progressive state from South India, we've had the demand for counting the caste for a long time. Almost 15 to 18 years ago, the then finance minister, later on to become the chief minister, Mr. Siddaramaiah, he had allocated funding for conducting such a census. And when he was the chief minister, he even conducted the census. The interesting thing is that that report is still in abeyance. When he was in power, it was not released. When he came into power as a part of a coalition, then the other member of the coalition government, who belonged to not Congress but to the JDS, they didn't release it. Now the BJP government is sitting in the power in the state. They are not willing to release. What is the reason? The reason is that the facts are very uncomfortable for the political establishment, and those according to figures leaked tentatively, not confirmed but leaked. There has been this, Goldy George talked about the upper backward classes and the lower backward classes, some of which are powerful. So the upward backwards, which are politically active and powerful, in Karnataka are considered, there are two large ones, that is the Lingayats and the Vokkaligas. And they are supposed to be numerically, large in number as well as politically powerful, which justifies the large numbers of seats given to them by political parties at elections, etc. And relatively, other than the reserved constituencies, you don't get Dalits in any other general constituency. But apparently, the Dalits, the figures have shown that the Dalits now constitute 30%. The Dalits alone, that is the scheduled castes alone, not counting the scheduled tribes, constitute about 30% of the Karnataka state population, which means that it will entirely rejig the political composition, the reservation pattern, so it has its own serious implications for political existence of these politically powerful parties. And many of these parties are also caste-based. So the Gaudas are popular and hold among the JDS. The JDS is considered the Gauda party, the Vokkaliga party, and the BJP has large numbers of Lingayats in it. So the political power balance, which is between these two politically strong, politically powerful backward communities, which tend to be landowning, that will get disturbed. And this is the reason why that information is being suppressed. So there is a huge politics, power politics behind keeping the information looking at I didn't have time to do much research about Nepal, but a little bit of research about Bangladesh and Pakistan's Dalits. You will realize that suddenly India's become very conscious of the Bengali-speaking Dalit population living in Bangladesh, and suddenly our PM also went to visit one of the temples there, because it is in the border between Bangladesh and India, and electorally significant numbers of Matua population who are SCs, that is Dalits, reside, and their main temple is across the border in Bangladesh. So that is why he went to pay his respects to the temple there. So you can imagine the kind of power play that happens around Dalits and their numbers. So this is that is as far, and they're not the only Dalit population. There's another population known as Namashudras who are also very active, and they're also important because it was a Namashudras who got Ambedkar elected into the parliament when the Congress ensured his defeat in Maharashtra. In the early years of in the first general election that took place in India. So therefore, there's a lot at stake politically and in terms of power. In terms of the minorities in Pakistan, I'm told that the Christians are the third largest minority. Of course, the Hindus probably being the second. But I was interested in the fact, I was always under the impression that the most of the Christians in Punjab, in Pakistan, are Punjabis who live in, who tend to be Dalits, and who live in Punjab area. But I understand that they constitute about 75% of the population of Christians. And there are also Goan Christians as well as Anglo-Indians who have stayed on, and who are part of, who were working in the establishment, in the schools and probably the business establishments pre-independence, and stayed on because they have their work and families in Pakistan. So there has been also an important part of this debate, which I would like to, again, it's a historical debate. And so there is this, and it is of importance even not only to India, but to any other group which talks about gender justice. And that is that in India, we have been having the debate around reservation of women, for women in assemblies and parliament, or reservation of seats to represent, because hardly 10 to 12% of the seats are held by women. And there has been a lot of dissatisfaction. And so therefore, in fact, one of the previous governments passed the women's reservation bill, which gave 33%, that is 1/3 reservation of seats to women. Now the demand has gone up for 50% reservation, but that is not happening. The technical reason for that is that they don't have data on OBC populations, because when you reserve, you also have to reserve category wise. And the government is very conveniently escaping by saying that they lack the data of the composition of the OBCs in the country. And that is why they are, technically unable to make this happen. So this is nothing but casuistry and beating around the bush and making excuses to ensure that patriarchy and, the powerful continue to rule the roost and not share power with women in particular. So apart from that, of course, as you know, I'm quoting a report by the earlier planning commission, which has been abolished by the present government. It says, in the absence of exact assessment of the OBC's population size, literacy rate, employment status in government, private and unorganized sectors, basic civil amenities, health status, poverty status, and human development, it is very difficult to formulate realistic policies and programs for the development of OBCs. The same, of course, holds for the Dalits. But the census does collect, the government does collect data on SCs and STs, very broad OBC population. So therefore, it is a huge gap. It's a policy failure, I would say, and it is a lack of political will in order to, so as not to share power with those who are now beginning to get organized and demand it. And so therefore, there is an important, this is the important thing. And interestingly, there's something that I would like to highlight, very, very little known fact, that is the Ambedkar records. This is Dr. Ambedkar recording when he was part of something called the Lothian Committee, which was basically talking in the 1930s, which was basically, and he was in part of the Indian Franchise Committee, a subcommittee of the Lothian Committee. Because as you know, it was a follow-up to the roundtable conferences which took place, and there was a lot of debate and discussion around the issue. So then it says, I'll quote him, these are his own words. There was another struggle which, though of a smaller character, was yet full of significance. It was the struggle between the backward classes and the untouchables. The representatives of the backward classes contended that the category known as depressed classes should not only include untouchables, but also include those classes which are economically and educationally backward. In putting forth this contention, they were not asking for anything new. Under the reformed constitution that came into operation in 1920, the right of the economically and educationally backward communities was recognized in the 2 provinces of India, and in Bombay, the Marathas and allied castes, and in Madras, the non-Brahmins were given separate representation on the only ground that they were economically and educationally backward. However, it says that when the time came for discussion and debate, the untouchables did not want the non-untouchable, the touchable populations to be categorized along with them. And so they were forced to get lumped with the privileged communities. And that is how this has continued, that, the Dalits and ST population are separate, and the rest are the OPCs, though they're recognized as educationally backward and economically backward, they are not able to get their own space and things. So, and at one point, the OBCs decided not to lump themselves with the untouchables and come. This is a matter of public record, which Ambedkar, it's a little known fact, but Ambedkar writes about this in his writings. So this is the history. So it is a fraught issue, and I'm glad you picked up on this subject, but I don't think any of our governments are really interested in the real numbers coming out. But we want to be very aware of what is happening, and let the powers that be also know that we are researchers and scholars who are eagerly waiting and watching to see that justice and equality prevails, that representation is given to those who lack representation in the corridors of power, whether they are women, whether they are Adivasis or Dalits or any of the backward populations. Now with this, I will thank you very much for your patient hearing.
Thank you, Ms. Cynthia Stephen, for your time and comprehensive address. Now, the other speaker, Dr. Obed Manwatkar, is an independent blogger, peace and justice activist, and adjunct professor of the World Religions and Cultures in Chicago. He was born in Nagpur, India. He has been involved in the caste reconciliation movement for over a decade. Obed's work and scholarship are based on India's OBCs, other backward castes, Dalits, and tribals, which remains one of the most oppressed groups in the India subcontinent. Sir, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Sir, I hand it over to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Khuram, Iqra, Kissa, Zehra, and all the team of Sharim, and I am so happy to be on your platform. And it just I didn't know that Dr. Cynthia and Dr. Goldy are already there, and it's so fun, and it's really a joy to share another panel with them. And of course, thank you for reaching out to me via Twitter and then via email, and then we just did back and forth. So yeah, about estimating, I'll come directly to the topic, and I'll just summarize it because it's too lengthy, and it's very, very vast, and it's very complex topic. And Dr. Goldy already added a lot of stuff about OBCs and Dalits and how the stereotypings and what happens in society. Cynthia also pointed out various things about practice of untouchability and the politics and how it shapes the politics and all. So I'm not getting into that because it's already been said. To add further on this, estimating the population depends on the governments in all these countries, be it India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, or Bangladesh, or Nepal, or it depends on their census if they do or not. And to estimate the population, I would suggest to the listeners. I would suggest to the listeners and that please do not refer Professor Google. Please do ground research and if someone wants to do a research, and and it depends like who is a how do you define who is a Dalit, because the casteist narrative uh, of the stereotyping which happens in the society is is completely different. And so, for example, an upper caste narrative comes up, like they would say that what kind of Dalit you are. You go in, you ride in Tesla, you ride in, you have a big bungalow, so you are not a Dalit because you are rich. You know? So in their understanding, a Dalit means who lives in the village and who doesn't wear proper clothing, who lives dirty life. That is a understanding of Dalit for an upper caste narrative in India. And there is one way we can estimate. We can estimate with the religion, because my specialization is on how religions have empowered these communities, the backward communities or marginalized communities, to get out of this slavery and to emancipate themselves from this system. So in Pakistan, if you see the religion of the marginalized is Christianity, and then Sikhism, because the dominant religion is Islam. Uh, in India, there is no religion. Hinduism is not religion, but in India, because of the caste system, people were oppressed, and so people embraced Islam, people embraced Christianity, people embraced Buddhism, people came out with their new religious identities like Lingayat, like Ravidasiya, like and so on. And so in Nepal, people, the marginalized religion, the Dalit or oppressed, the religion of the oppressed is either Christianity or either Islam. The third is Buddhism. So it's really a good question, which caste comes under Dalit category and which not. And Bangladesh have different system of caste and in their society. So those are hardworking because they are outcast. Although we cannot see because of the because of main religion is Islam, and if we have similar names and categories, so it's hard to identify. But it's there. Sri Lanka is the same case. Uh, so I grew up in Maharashtra and Central India, and I know about the Central India and North Indian practices, and it's it's a very vast topic, and about estimation, governments need to be serious about it. And I'm thankful for Sarin that you guys took this issue, and this is really a very serious issue. And so I'm just giving you the possibilities that we can estimate in this way, that why people in an Islamic state like Pakistan embrace Christianity. If Islam, if it was about foundation, its foundation was laid on equality. So why people embrace other religions? So there is a reason: caste. So these things and can be a possibility to trace the Dalit population. But of course, I've seen new people are coming up with new ideas, new religions. People are embracing Islam and Christianity mostly till today in Indian subcontinent to get out of the caste system. And recently, previously the convergence happened in the 6-7 years secretly. And so what happens in Indian context is, when you embrace the religion, you become a minority. You are not you are deprived of reservation. You are deprived of the things. So many people remain in their caste and go to churches or mosque, but they remain in their caste. So they don't change their names. They don't change their identity as a Dalit or something. So that is another problem. But again, the governments need to be thing. So it's like See, we can generalize. See, there are 640 million Dalits in whole South Asia, so it's not like generalized. So, but then question comes: who will do the who will do the research on these 640 millions? Now, and how we will research these people? It's all general idea, general analysis. So we need to talk about the OBCs who are also deprived of. They are not counted since 1931 in India, and the British government they counted them in the census. But now they are, even such talks from the OBC leaders in the parliament happened that the animals are counted, but OBCs are not counted in this country. But still, there is no shame that governments are not doing proper census, because it's a threat that if we come to know which caste stands where, then many things will be exposed. So this is a very challenging to estimate the population of the marginalized and the oppressed groups. And I hope that it happens soon. To conclude my talk, I would say, uh, uh, I would suggest, I would repeat: don't refer Professor Google, do your ground research, and uh, and if you need any guidance, or you can write to us. We can really take initiative to help you out to estimate. But it's not just a 1 day or 1 week trip or 2 week trip, and it would happen for. It needs a really thoroughly. It needs a very very thorough research, because new ideas are changing, transforming, and transformations are
Thank you, Dr. Obed Manwatkar. We appreciate your words. We will go ahead and take some time for questions from our question inbox. I have few questions. First, I would like to ask from Madam Cynthia Stephen. And my first question is, why are Dalits denied reservations in education and government employment as well as other constitutional protections?
As a matter of fact, the constitution reservations are there for Dalits. They are not denied on paper, but in practice, the things are manipulated in such a way able to access. For instance, there are scholarships. The scholarships are given in such conditions. They place such conditions on the person to receive it that it's impossible for them to receive. Or they will, if there is a post vacant, they will not call for the post, or they will not place the advertisement prominently enough for people to come and participate. Or even if they are participating, they will be given low marks in comparison with others and not hired. So there are so many ways in which the system is geared against them enjoying the facilities that they should get according to constitutional reservations. It's not that they are denied on paper. They are in fact given the reservations, but in practice there are huge backlogs of employment. For generations, people have not been picked up for work, and now and then they will do, and to clear up the backlog, you can see they will hold some special recruitment drives for SC/ST. But always the target is much below what they should be getting. So this is a kind of the system getting back at the Dalits, even though there is the, legally speaking, the state has the intent to give the benefit to them. The people who are there don't get. That is one. And another way in which there is denial of justice is when there are, according to the statistics, 65% of all the crimes committed in the country are committed against Dalits. And also like 50 to 60 to 80% depending on the nature of the crime, are violence against women cases are against Dalit women. But you will see that cases that are registered, first of all, they don't get registered. If they get registered, almost 70 to 80% of them don't result in conviction. In case of women, Dalit women's, sexual violence against Dalit women, 90% of the cases never result in conviction. Denial of justice and constitutional benefits to the institutionally it is done, though on paper they exist. Also add that when Dalits convert to other religions, namely to especially to Christianity and Islam, they are denied the reservations. They fall into a different category. They no longer are Dalits. They become OBC category because the argument is that both in Islam and in Christianity, there is no systemic practice of caste. So they're out of the caste system, so they cannot be categorized that. So that is another reason given to deny, the benefits of constitutional reservations to people, to Dalits who convert into Islam and Christianity.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Now I would like to ask another question from Sir Obed Manwatkar. Sir, my question is, why are Dalits the single largest group to be discriminated against because of their caste, including the practice of untouchability?
There have been this community was the agrarian community, the Indian subcontinent, and lots of invasions have happened here in Indian subcontinent, and so this community, those who are framed as Dalits today, they were like at one time they were fighters. They fought the forces, invasive forces, and that's why when the invasions happened and they lost, and then they were categorized, and then later on laws were made. Laws of Manu is there. So Manu, the law of Manu is one of the ancient laws of Brahmanism and the caste system, and that law still exists, although it was burned by Ambedkar in 1927. But this law still exists in the mindset of people. And why people are categorized? Because this system is so ancient. So this system was made by the Brahmins to serve them. So they needed laborers to serve them, to serve their privileges. So that's why one community, Valmiki community, you see, they're called as manual scavengers. One is they only have right to do manual scavenging, to clean the dirt and all. And stereotypes existed in Gandhi era, and I have heard many talk about Gandhi's progressivism. That is not true. Gandhi propagated this system with core, with his heart, and so there are, why this system exists, because of because this is from the evil one, and it's been historic, it's been cultural, it has become a part of the culture now, that to discriminate someone is a part of a culture. So that notion, and that notion is there. So why so just simple example I'll give you. Why people of India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and Nepal, they have one common thing: they spit on the roads. They throw garbage on the roads. People in the United States don't do that. You know why? This is a simple example in our day-to-day life. If you eat a banana, you throw the banana. There is a particular caste to pick your garbage, to clean your dirt. So this is how deeper it is. Even though we are in different religions, we say we don't believe in caste and all blah blah blah, but it's there. So it's very deeper. We need to think more deeper how to get rid of this and why this exists. And so yeah, I hope I have answered you.
I agree. Thank you so much. Now I would like to invite Dr. Khuram to bring this session to a close. He is a head of South Asia Research Institute for Minorities. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Kissa, for inviting me to conclude this remarkable session. The population of minorities is underestimated which has a major effect on their upbringing. SARIM recommends that a forum be established on SARC level to facilitate the empowerment of regional minorities and plans to create a demographic map of South Asia's minorities. And this webinar is the first step in that direction, especially for the Dalit community. When there is stratification based on race, ethnicity, religion, or caste, their interests can diverge and clash with national interest. While lowering the population growth rate may be a desirable national objective, many groups would like to ensure that their share of population does not decline during the demographic transition because power is proportional to population. The scheduled caste, who have been oppressed and denied opportunities for decades, and the scheduled tribes, who have been isolated and excluded from the development process for a long time, are distinct communities, these special groups. The available data indicates that ethnic minorities and poorer parts of society, such as Dalits and scheduled caste and tribes, differ from the average or dominant population in some demographic aspects. Government should reorient some of their policies for the overall inclusive growth of minorities and should increase the quantum of reservation in education, employment, and other sectors without further delay because census data is outdated and the population of scheduled caste is growing. Clearly, Dalit demographic estimate face a variety of difficulties. There is a range of issues with making demographic estimate in the absence of updated and reliable official data, and we are eager to work with activists, academicians, researchers, and others on this, as it is certainly a difficult job. All speakers are requested to support and collaborate with for the mapping of minorities in South Asia. Finally, I would like to thank our speakers, Dr. Goldy M George, Ma'am Cynthia Stephen, Dr. Obed Manwatkar for their contributions. This webinar gave us a better understanding of the problems at hand, and it will have a big impact on our current and future work in the region. Thank you so much, everyone. God bless you.
Thank you very much for your valuable insight remarks, and thank you all the respected speakers for taking out the time to share your observation and thoughts with us today. It was a wonderful to have you all together. Stay safe. Goodbye.